I was so proud when my son Jake, only 17, offered to design and make a wedding dress for my sister Diana. He had been passionate about fashion design since he was 12, spending hours sketching outfits and learning to sew. Diana had always been supportive of his talent, buying him his first sewing machine for his 14th birthday. Their bond was special, which made her request even more meaningful to Jake. For 6 months he poured his heart, sweat, and tears into creating her perfect dress. When our wedding invitations finally arrived, we were shocked to discover Jake was not on the guest list. I still remember the devastated look on his face. If you are watching this right now, I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Before we dive deeper into this heartbreaking family story, please hit that like button and subscribe if you value loyalty and standing up for those you love. Your support means everything. Life was good for our family before all this wedding drama began. I work as a plumber running my own small business, while my wife Laura is a pediatric nurse at the local hospital. We have always lived modestly in our 3-bedroom home in Springfield, taking pride in hard work and family values. Jake, our only child, showed creative talents from an early age that neither Laura nor I possessed. While most boys his age were playing football or video games, Jake was sketching fashion designs and learning everything he could about fabrics and garments. My sister Diana and I grew closer after our parents died in a car accident 10 years ago. She is 7 years younger than me, and I naturally took on a protective role in her life. Diana chose a career as an elementary school teacher, always having a special way with children. She absolutely adored Jake and encouraged his passion for fashion when some other family members thought it was just a phase. Things started to change 8 months ago when Diana introduced us to her new boyfriend, Anthony. They had only been dating for 3 months, but she was already completely enamored with him. Anthony comes from Old Money Runs, some kind of investment firm, and lives in the wealthy part of town that people like us rarely visit. The class difference was obvious from the start, but Diana seemed happy, so we welcomed him into our family gatherings. The engagement happened quickly after just 5 months of dating. Diana was ecstatic when she showed up at our house one Sunday afternoon, flashing her enormous diamond ring. Laura prepared a special dinner to celebrate, and we toasted to their happiness. During dessert, Diana started talking about wedding plans and mentioned how shocked she was at the cost of wedding dresses. "I went to 3 boutiques yesterday," she sighed, picking at her chocolate cake. "The cheapest dress I liked was $4,000. $4,000, and it still needed alterations." Jake, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. "Aunt Diana," he said, his voice a mix of nervousness and excitement, "I could make your wedding dress if you want." The table went silent. Diana looked at Jake with widening eyes. "Are you serious?" she asked. "You would do that for me?" Jake nodded eagerly. "I have been studying wedding dress designs for a school project. I know I could create something beautiful for you. Something unique that nobody else would have." Diana stood up, walked around the table, and hugged Jake so tight he could barely breathe. There were tears in her eyes when she finally let go. "Nothing would make me happier than wearing a dress made by you," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity. Jake spent hours researching designs, drawing sketches, and showing them to Diana during her frequent visits. He saved money from his weekend job at the local fabric store to buy the highest quality materials he could afford. I even pitched in some extra cash when I saw how serious he was about making this perfect. Jake sacrificed everything for this project. He turned down invitations from friends, skipped school events, and spent weekends hunched over his sewing machine. Laura and I would often find him asleep at his desk, surrounded by fabric samples and design books. His dedication was inspiring, and we could not have been prouder. The fitting sessions between Jake and Diana were filled with laughter and joy. She would come over every other weekend, and they would disappear into his room-turned-studio for hours. We could hear them chatting and giggling like old friends rather than aunt and nephew. Diana would emerge looking genuinely happy, telling us how amazing the dress was coming along and how talented our son was. Around the 4th month of this process, we started noticing subtle changes in Diana. She became less enthusiastic during fittings, checking her phone constantly and making excuses to leave early. She canceled twice with barely any notice, citing work commitments or appointments with wedding vendors. Jake tried not to show his disappointment, but I could see it in his eyes. One evening, while Diana was in our kitchen taking a call, I overheard something that troubled me. She was speaking to Anthony about wedding details, and his voice was loud enough that I could hear him through the speaker. "Honey, are you still letting that boy make your dress?" he asked, his tone dismissive. "My mother knows a renowned designer who could create something truly spectacular for you. Jake is working really hard on it." Diana replied, her voice noticeably lower, "And it is coming along beautifully." "Well, just remember, this is going to be photographed for posterity," Anthony said. "We do not want you walking down the aisle in something that looks homemade." Instead of defending Jake and his talent, Diana simply sighed and changed the subject. I walked away before she could see me, troubled by what I had heard, but hoping it was just pre-wedding stress affecting everyone. As the wedding date grew closer, Diana became increasingly distant from our family. She missed Sunday dinners, was slow to respond to text messages, and the warm relationship she had always shared with Jake cooled considerably. Still, Jake remained devoted to creating her perfect dress, unaware of the conversations happening behind his back. One afternoon, while picking up Laura from the hospital, I bumped into Stephanie, one of Diana's closest friends who worked as a nurse in the same ward as my wife. During our chat, Stephanie mentioned attending a dinner at Anthony's parents' mansion the previous weekend. "It was so uncomfortable," she confided. "Anthony's mother kept asking Diana about her family, but in this really condescending way. She referred to you as the plumber brother and made a face when Diana mentioned Jake making her dress." "What did Diana say?" I asked, already dreading the answer. Stephanie looked away, clearly uncomfortable. She just laughed along with them. Then Anthony's mother said something about how they needed to help Diana elevate beyond her working-class background now that she was joining their family. My heart sank. The Diana I knew would never have tolerated anyone speaking about her family that way. She would have defended us fiercely. This new Diana, desperate to fit into Anthony's world, was becoming someone I barely recognized. Despite the growing tension, Jake continued working diligently on the dress. He spent nearly every cent of his savings on Swarovski crystals for delicate beadwork and imported French lace for the bodice. The dress was taking shape, and even with my limited fashion knowledge, I could tell it was extraordinary. 7 months into the project, Jake called Diana for what he said would be the final fitting, before adding the last details. She arrived looking distracted and checked her watch repeatedly during the session. When Jake asked her to try on the nearly completed dress, her reaction was tepid at best. "It is beautiful, Jake," she said without much enthusiasm. "You have done an amazing job." "You do not sound very excited," Jake said, his face falling. "Is there something wrong with it? I can still make adjustments?" Diana quickly backpedaled. No, it is perfect. Really. I am just stressed about all the wedding details." She paused, then added, "I am still considering a few options for the big day, but this is definitely in the running." Jake froze. "In the running? I thought this was the dress you were going to wear." Of course," Diana said hurriedly. "I just meant brides sometimes have last-minute jitters about their choices." The light dimmed in Jake's eyes, but he nodded and continued pinning a section of the hem. I watched from the doorway, my stomach knotting with the certainty that something was very wrong. What Jake did not tell Diana that day was about the special detail he had added to the dress, a secret that only our immediate family knew about. Along the inside hem of the dress, in tiny, almost invisible stitches, he had embroidered the names of our parents, Diana's father and mother, who would not be there to see her marry. It was his way of ensuring they would still walk her down the aisle, a testament to his thoughtfulness and the love he had poured into every stitch. After Diana left, Jake stayed up all night completing the final details on the dress. When he finally emerged from his room the next morning, exhausted but proud, the finished creation took our breath away. The dress was a masterpiece of classic elegance, with modern touches that perfectly suited Diana's personality and figure. The bodice featured delicate beadwork that caught the light with every movement, while the skirt flowed gracefully with just enough structure to look sophisticated without being overly formal. "Do you think she will like it?" Jake asked, his voice small and uncertain. "She will love it," Laura assured him. though I caught the worried glance she sent my way. We both sensed that something was not right, but neither of us wanted to diminish Jake's accomplishment. The following week, as we eagerly awaited the final reveal to Diana, our mailbox contained 3 cream-colored envelopes. The wedding invitations had arrived. We gathered around the kitchen table as Laura opened them. There was an invitation addressed to Mr. and Mrs. William Stevens, another to Miss Laura Stevens, and a third to Mr. William Stevens. None for Jake. They probably sent his separately, Laura suggested, but the uncertainty in her voice betrayed her doubt. Jake said nothing, but his expression crumpled. He retreated to his room without a word, the door closing softly behind him. I immediately called Diana, certain there had been a mistake with the invitations. The phone rang several times before she answered, her voice cautious when she heard it was me. "Diana, we got the wedding invitations today," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "But there seems to be a mix-up. Jake did not receive one." The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably long before Diana finally spoke. "Bill, I am sorry, but that is not a mistake," she said quietly. "We had to make some difficult decisions about the guest list. The venue has limited capacity, and Anthony has a large family and many business associates who need to be included." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "Diana, this is Jake we are talking about. Your nephew. The kid who has spent the last 6 months of his life creating your wedding dress. How could he possibly not make the cut for your guest list?" "I know it seems harsh," Diana replied, her voice taking on a defensive edge, "but these decisions are complicated. The wedding is costing a fortune, and every seat comes with a price tag. So you are telling me that my son, who has poured his heart and soul into making your dress for free, saving you thousands of dollars, is not worth the price of a dinner plate at your wedding?" My voice had risen despite my efforts to stay calm. "You do not understand the pressure I am under," Diana shot back. "Anthony's family has certain expectations about this event. It is not just my wedding, it is a social occasion for them." The conversation deteriorated from there. Diana claimed the decision was about budgets and space constraints, but her excuses rang hollow. I ended the call abruptly when she suggested we were being overdramatic about the situation. My suspicions were confirmed later that day when I spoke with another family member who had received an invitation. According to them, the wedding was being held at the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom, which could accommodate over 300 guests. The event was to be an extravagant affair, with a 10-piece orchestra, gourmet 5-course meal, and imported flowers flown in from Holland. Budget constraints were clearly not the issue. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place 2 days later, when Melissa, another of Diana's friends, called Laura. Apparently she could no longer keep quiet about what she had overheard at a bridal shower. Anthony's mother had expressed relief that the strange nephew would not be at the wedding, commenting that she did not want someone so obviously gay appearing in the wedding photos and making the family uncomfortable. Even worse, Diana had nodded along, explaining that Jake was going through a phase and it was better for everyone if he stayed home. I was seething with anger, but nothing prepared me for the moment Jake discovered the truth. He had come downstairs for a glass of water while Laura was still on the phone with Melissa, catching the tail end of the conversation. The look of raw pain on his face as the realization dawned nearly broke me. No parent should ever have to witness their child suffering such cruel rejection, especially from family who was supposed to love them unconditionally. Jake did not cry, at least not in front of us. He simply turned around and walked back upstairs, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Later that night, I heard muffled sobs coming from his room. When I gently knocked and entered, I found him sitting on his bed, the wedding dress draped across his lap, his tears falling onto the delicate fabric he had so lovingly created. "She does not want me there because I am different," he whispered, his voice cracking. "All my life I have heard comments and jokes, but I never thought Aunt Diana felt that way too." I sat beside him, putting my arm around his shoulders. "This is not about you, Jake. This is about Diana choosing to please her new family instead of standing up for what is right. She is the one who should be ashamed, not you." The next day, Jake's fashion design teacher called, concerned about his absence from school. When we explained the situation, her outrage was immediate and fierce. By the end of the week, several of Jake's teachers and friends had reached out offering support and expressing their disgust at Diana's behavior. The solidarity was touching, but it could not erase the hurt my son was experiencing. Just when I thought the situation could not get any worse, Diana showed up at our house unannounced on Saturday afternoon. Laura and I were in the kitchen, while Jake was at a friend's house getting some much-needed distraction. "I came to pick up my dress," Diana announced without preamble, standing awkwardly in our living room. I stared at her in disbelief. "You cannot be serious." "Of course I am serious," she replied, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Jake made it for my wedding, and I would like to wear it." "The wedding that he is not good enough to attend?" Laura asked, her voice sharp with anger. Diana had the grace to look slightly ashamed, but she persisted. "Look, I know you are upset, and I understand why. But this is my wedding day, the most important day of my life. Jake made this dress for me, and it is beautiful. I am sure he would want me to wear it despite everything." "Despite everything," I echoed incredulously. "Despite the fact that you have broken his heart. Despite the fact that you chose to exclude him because your fiancé's family thinks he is too gay to be in your precious wedding photos." Diana's face flushed. "That is not fair. This is a complex situation that you are oversimplifying. When Jake is older, he will understand that sometimes adults have to make difficult compromises. The only thing Jake will understand is that his aunt, who he loved and respected, betrayed him in the cruelest way possible," Laura said, stepping forward. "And now you have the audacity to come here expecting to take the dress he made with so much love and pride." Diana's expression hardened. "I already ordered another dress as a backup, but Jake's is much more beautiful. It would be a shame for all his hard work to go to waste." That was the moment something snapped inside me. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me." Diana looked shocked. "You heard me. Get out of our house. You will not be taking the dress, and none of us will be attending your wedding. You made your choice, Diana. You chose your fiancé's prejudiced family over your own flesh and blood over a child who adored you. Now you can live with the consequences of that choice." Diana's face contorted with anger. "You are being unreasonable. I will tell everyone in the family how selfishly you are behaving." Laura stepped forward, her normally gentle demeanor replaced by protective fury. "Go ahead, tell them. Tell them exactly why Jake is not invited to your wedding, and see how many of them still want to attend." After Diana stormed out, Laura and I called a family meeting with Jake. We explained that we would not be attending the wedding and supported whatever decision he wanted to make about the dress. Without hesitation, Jake said he wanted to keep it. Not out of spite, but because he had come to see it as his most significant work to date, a portfolio piece that represented both his technical skills and the emotional journey it had taken him on. We contacted other family members to explain our decision, being careful to present the facts without embellishment. The response was overwhelming support. By the end of the week, 5 more relatives had declined their invitations, including our elderly aunt, who had planned to travel from Arizona for the event. The wedding proceeded without us. From what we heard through family members who did attend it, was a lavish but oddly joyless affair. Diana wore the backup dress, a designer gown that cost a small fortune, but according to our cousin, lacked personality and looked like every other bride that season. Anthony's family dominated the event with only a small contingent from our side present. Several guests commented on the noticeable family tension and Diana's strange smile in all the photos. 1 month after the wedding, Diana called me. Her voice sounded different, smaller somehow, without the defensive edge it had carried during our last conversation. "I made a terrible mistake," she admitted, cutting straight to the point. "Anthony is not who I thought he was, and his family is worse. They criticize everything about me, from my career to my friends. Last week, his mother suggested I take elocution lessons to soften my working-class accent. Can you believe that I listened silently, feeling a complex mix of vindication and sadness?" Diana continued, explaining how isolated she felt, how Anthony controlled their finances and scrutinized her spending, how his family treated her like a project to be improved rather than a person to be welcomed. "I should have worn Jake's dress," she said, her voice breaking. "It was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever created for me, and I threw that gift away for people who will never truly accept me. It was never just about the dress, Diana, I replied quietly. It was about loyalty, respect, and standing up for family. We talked for nearly an hour. While I could not erase the hurt she had caused Jake, I did not want to close the door on reconciliation entirely. I suggested she write Jake a letter, taking full responsibility and apologizing without excuses. Whether he chose to forgive her would be entirely his decision. Meanwhile, Jake had channeled his pain into creativity. He used the wedding dress as the centerpiece of a collection he called Family Bonds, exploring themes of acceptance, rejection, and resilience through fashion. His portfolio, featuring detailed photographs of the dress and his other designs, earned him a full scholarship to one of the top fashion design programs in the country. A local newspaper ran a feature on Jake's achievement, and without naming names, told the story of the wedding dress that never made it down the aisle. The article praised not only his design talents, but the dignity and grace with which he had handled such personal rejection. As for Diana, she sent the letter. I suggested a heartfelt 8-page handwritten apology that acknowledged the depth of her betrayal and made no excuses for her behavior. Jake read it carefully, then placed it in his portfolio case alongside his designs. I am not ready to talk to her yet, he told us, but someday maybe I will be. This experience taught our family powerful lessons about standing up for what is right even when it is painful. We learned that true family is defined not by blood, but by who stands beside you when it matters most. Most importantly, Jake learned that his worth is not determined by those who reject him, but by his own talents, integrity, and the love of those who truly see him. Looking back now, I realize that sometimes losing a relationship makes room for something more valuable to grow. Jake did not just survive this betrayal, he transformed it into a stepping stone toward his future. As I watch him confidently pursue his dreams, I understand that while Diana's actions caused tremendous pain, they also helped shape my son into the resilient, compassionate young man he is becoming. Have you ever had to stand up for someone you love against family pressure? What did you do in that situation? And looking back, would you have done anything differently? Your experiences might help someone else facing a similar challenge. Right now, please share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life family stories. Do not forget to share this with someone who might need to hear that standing up for what is right is always worth it, even when it hurts. Thank you for listening. And remember that true family is built on love and respect, not obligation.